podcast. I am your host, Kinte, all the way live from Los Angeles, California, and this is episode number 116. I am joined by my beautiful and talented co-host, the one and only Jen. How you?
I am so excited about last night's episode.
Yes, and it seems like that it's getting good reviews as well. And will it get a good review from us? We'll find out in just a moment. But we're back for another episode or another season.
It's hard to believe we're at 116.
Right, huh?
Oof.
Yes, 116 episodes.
That's a lot of shows.
It is. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to hand the mic over to you. And let's do this thing.
Well, I am going to start with just sort of my own take on what I expected going into this episode, this season, and what I actually got. So I expected that season 10 would be more of the same. I was actually mildly surprised by last season's ability to sort of pick up some things that I didn't even expect them to, but I was also really disappointed by the pacing, the timing, I had a bunch of sort of little bickering things about where things were going. And that's never really a good place to be when you want to enjoy a show, when you start nitpicking all the little pieces out of it. So last night when I sat down to watch this, I sort of had like a zero expectation about what might happen. And I have to say, by the end of this, I was really surprised at how well they executed a first episode for a series that is now in its 10th season. It was, I don't know how much they listen to the fans, how much they listen to the critics, how much they sort of have their own internal sense of what's going on. But if last night's episode is any indication of where season 10 is going, it's really off to a good start. The timing was so well done last night. And I didn't feel like, even though I know that we are episodically almost, in the zombie soap opera, it didn't feel that way to me last night. It felt very fresh again. It felt like, even though there's all these new problems that are really the same problems, they all felt differently presented. And I thought that was just really excellent. So that was my initial take. What was your initial take?
First of all, I love the way that it began. I thought that was really cool because it began and we're in outer space and I'm sitting there like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And it wasn't like, because, the minute you say, when you add outer space to a lot of stuff, you already go, wait a minute, oh boy.
They're jumping the shark.
Right, jumping the shark. Is this gonna be Moonraker?
So they're a zombie in outer space. Yeah, I know. I had that feeling too.
Right, but no, it was not that. It was very good, and I enjoyed how they used the whole outer space element to the show, and with the satellites coming down. There used to be the show back in the day called oh my god, what's that show? It was on the History Channel, and it was this show where it would show you life after people.
Right, yeah, that was good.
And it would break down like what would happen after we were all gone, right? And it would just as a decade would go by, as as just more time would go by, and and one of the things that I saw Angela Kang talk about was they had like a conversation about like what would happen, and one of the things was the satellites would fall down,
right,
outer space. And I thought that was cool because as we're going on in this story, and things are starting to happen, that is something that, unfortunately, well, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter at this point, right? They didn't even need it. But
Yeah.
you know, I just liked how that was like a thing, you know.
Well, so that actually set the stage for quite a few things I think that happened throughout this episode. But I'm going to use that as one of the examples of why this episode was so good. And Greg Nicotero holding the reins, it always feels like there's something fresh. I enjoy his style a lot. But the thing that this episode did, which they have tried to do sort of with mixed success in the past, is they had what I would call a broken timeline where something would happen and you would see it from the vantage point of the people who were involved in it at the time. But then we sort of go through the episode and the same thing is basically happening, but in a different location. So
Right.
you sort of see the perspective from multiple different places and multiple different people, even though the events are basically the same. And I really did like that. Thought that that was really clever and well executed this time. I let's talk for a second about Roman Training Day.
Right.
So, really excellent that they decided to use Roman military tactics. I thought that that was actually
It's called
excellent.
a phalanx.
What's
Phalanx.
that?
It's called like a phalanx.
I mean, it was. You could even see them forming up in squares. I mean, like it was actually good. I thought that that was just absolutely mammothly clever. That they are learning that as one they stand strong, but by themselves or without the group, they are much weaker. And this really brought that home in a big way, which I just thought was absolutely amazing. So we also got the fact that they're definitely very integrated with Seaside, which is also very nice. Like that a lot. I sort of loved the fact that that all together now as a group, it feels more homogenous isn't the word. Cohesive, I think, is a better word. It feels much more cohesive. Like the groups have sort of moved past their petty fighting and who does who what, and are definitely now okay. No, we got to stand together. I don't know if that's actually because of the Whisperers, but it still feels like that's really an awesome part. And then of course Judith finds the mask of the dead, and that stirs into motion just uh, an interesting response from just about everybody. And then all the responses are so different, right? We have Michonne who responds in one way, and then we have um, just about everybody else responding differently, which I also thought was really cool. What did you think of that?
No, I thought it was good too because it goes into like where they're at as far as how they view where the the how they view where they're at as far as the end of the world.
And
Like,
isn't it? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just saying like uh, because different people they kind of view everything like differently, right?
Mm.
And some people, they're all for the this is what it is, this is how you're supposed to be, yada yada yada. And then you have those who maybe don't understand it yet. I think most people kind of get it now, so that's not as big of an issue, but it just kind of gives insight into it.
What I kind of secretly loved was that Michonne, who originally was sort of the take no prisoners and no risk uh, is an acceptable risk, has turned into, oh, okay, well, wait a minute, let's actually think about this. Let's actually not make everything the sky is falling, when ironically the sky is falling. And I just thought that that was just sort of an awesome way of bringing us into where people are. Michonne, who has never been the one to err on the side of, well, maybe it's not as bad as we think. I mean, maybe it could be okay. Okay, let's just see what happens. Cautious trepidation. Where everybody else used to be exactly that, and Michonne, I mean, like, just the roles have just reversed so much. So that was really super interesting. I wanted to get your take on this. So it seemed like a big theme last night, all the way through. In fact, it encompasses a couple of conversations. It was, are we the good guys? And I wonder if this episode is setting us up for season 10 to be much more about the ethics of being the survivors instead of just the problems and solutions of being the survivors. I mean, like, we grapple a little bit with some of that in sort of every season, but I don't think we've had a season that really delved into the deeper psychology of, is what we're doing the right thing? And I thought all of the conversations around that were really, really insightful and good this episode. What did you think?
No, the writing is way better. Let's just be honest. The writing is better. I really love with Angela Kang. I really believe that she's doing a fantastic job. And no disrespect to somebody else, but no, but it's I really do believe that it's way better.
It's it's funny because it feels like they haven't changed anything, right? And when I say that, I mean the premise of the story is exactly the same. We're not changing up so much of our of the storyline, or we haven't done such a huge time jump that we can't.
Uh-oh, did I lose you?
Here, hello.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. There was a freshness to last night that I personally I haven't experienced in quite a few seasons, and I am eagerly expecting this to last throughout the season. I really hope it does. Really hope it does. Even the kids had better lines than they have in previous in previous episodes. It just, everything felt like it came together for this episode. I mean, that's what I think.
I agree. Yes.
I also really liked Michonne saying that that it's part of understanding and being strategic is about critical thinking and understanding that sometimes not only is it okay to not act in fear, but act with trepidation, I guess is a good word, careful consideration. Understanding that seeing the ley lines in what's happening isn't always about just jumping in and fixing a problem, or just jumping in and creating some solution or pathway forward. It's really about thinking about the bigger picture. And I don't know, I feel like that is sort of new. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Rick really had a lot of that too, but I feel like it wasn't as projected as it is right now. What do you think?
Dang, that's a great question. No, I don't think so. No, not at all.
I think, remember, I think I said this last season when they were, pulling around their own version of the Constitution, right? That it felt like they wanted to go in the direction of this is how we reform as a society. So after the apocalypse, all these things have changed. All these things are who we want to be, but who we have to be gets in the way of who we want to be. And I feel like now what they're sort of getting at is it doesn't matter. There's never a good time to be who we want to be. It's if we don't behave as who we want to be, we will never be those people. And I really felt that last night, both with Daryl and Carol, with Michonne and everyone, and even with Eugene. But ironically, the biggest, and it was such a short little piece of the episode, I felt it the most with Negan. I felt like Negan, and especially Gabriel, at that last scene, it was just, that was really heavy to me. What did you think about it?
Yeah, and it was funny too. Let's just be honest. Negan is quite the comedian.
He's
So,
always been a comedian. He just used to be scarier.
right. No, I thought
I loved his line about braining people with a tomato.
yeah, that was funny. That was funny. Yes. No, I think that anytime when he's a part of it, it's just gonna be magic. You know what I'm saying?
It's almost like, it's almost like in Negan. Boy, how can I say this? I think Negan sees into situations that nobody else sees into or can see into. Like his unique perspective is not just one of, I happened to be the most horrible person alive. What he really sort of represents is the faction of humanity that understands that in a post-apocalyptic environment, things will never be the same.
Right.
You think that you're bringing things to align. You think that you are, lulling yourself basically into a false sense of security. But here's the real deal. The real deal is under the surface, it's always going to be this way. I kind of like that, because not because I, think that what Negan is saying is like, oh yeah, that's what I would say too. It's not my mantra. But I like it because it presents for us, excuse me, an ulterior way of looking at things that don't always, that even though I think The Walking Dead tries to tell us, it's not always really obvious without having some kind of dialogue that that's really what it's all about. And I really liked that it was just forthright this time. I mean, his line about feeding Gabriel wisdom, regurgitating his wisdom like a baby bird. I just loved that. I mean, it really, baby bird a little bit of my wisdom into that pretty little mouth of yours. That was the line. I loved that. I really did.
I did too. That was pretty funny.
And I also really liked the fact that Gabriel was able to sort of make sense out of it without, up and decking Negan. That also felt really good too.
Shoot, I would have probably still decked him though.
Gabriel is Gabriel is such an interesting character. All right, so let's segue that into 3 Men and a Baby. And man, what? Jeez, I don't even know where to go with that. That honestly, that was the only part of the episode that sort of didn't sit well with me.
That was weird.
It really was. Although, I think we understand now that PTSD, after being with Alpha, it is such a huge, like, it gives you a sense of gravitas about what it was like to be with Alpha, that it was so scary and so viscerally terrifying that it's actually causing PTSD. I thought that was fascinating. What did you think?
Yes, like Alpha is might go down to be one of the, like, you would think, okay, you have the governor, you had Negan, like there's no way Alpha could be on that level, right? because those guys were so iconic.
right?
And in her own way, she is becoming the most formidable of everybody.
I think already
Right.
she is scarier on a magnitude to the governor and even to Negan. I mean, yeah, I figured the saviors would be one of those sort of up there. Nothing could really be more scary than a group of people who just sort of are I am Negan at their heart, the cult. But it's not. I, it's sort of interesting to me because Alpha, I mean, not to make too much irony out of all of this, but Alpha is a woman of very few words,
Mm-hmm.
but the words that she does speak are so impactful. And it said a lot to me that by the time that we were at the end of the episode and Carol was looking at Alpha from across the quarry, that I felt a level of dread about that, just how powerful Alpha really is. I mean, clearly Carol was in no danger at that moment, but that look that Alpha was able to transmit across that quarry was absolutely terrifying. And it was really surprising to me.
It was a great shot too, by the way.
It really was. No, that's the same quarry where we've seen Walker herds, right?
Yeah, what happened to? Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Mm.
So they cleared it out or something, or did I forget
Or
about it?
maybe they much of the herd that was sort of a part of that is now in Alpha's, like Alpha is not controlling them. I don't want to, because I don't know if Alpha controls the dead so much as
Oh, she sure does.
she's like she's like a shepherd, a shepherdess.
Not a good shepherd.
No, I'm not a benevolent shepherdess, that's for sure. But definitely.
Is that a word, shepherdess?
Yeah, is it? What's a female shepherd?
Le shepherd.
We'll just make up a word and say this is what Alpha is. So okay, so having said that, there something happened. I mean, okay, so couple things. Wait, just sort of randomly first, so that I can get this out, right, and then tell me what you think.
Uh-huh.
One thing is, if there is a herd out there, and Alpha is controlling them or acting as the shepherd to them, the fact that they didn't all show up at the fire, when we know that the walkers are attracted to both light and sound, said something that would be pretty amazing. If she's able to control that many, and this huge thing happened, and still only the ones that showed up, which was formidable anyway.
Right.
But it seemed like everybody who was a walker within, 20, 30 miles of them should have appeared. And clearly that's not what happened.
Right. No, that's not what happened. Yeah.
So it does seem like maybe something else is sort of happening. I don't know. That one has me kind of scratching my head. So what did you think about that whole the forest fire scene?
Oh, it was great. It was like backdraft with zombies.
It was awesome.
No, that was pretty cool. I loved it, man. That was and it was a great visual. It had this great look to it. So no, I enjoyed that. That was really cool. I mean, they always do such an amazing job with that, and the action scenes were really well done, and the episode looked very good. The cinematography was really excellent.
Definitely.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done. It started off with a great script, and everybody, they have a great crew.
One of the things that I'm
take away from the crew.
Oh yeah, definitely not. One of the things that I'm always so fascinated about with the Walking Dead is watching the evolution of their tool building skills. And in the firefighting scene, it was pretty amazing how many tools they had sort of repurposed and crafted in order to get the job done. And I mean, it to me, that speaks to the level of detail that the showrunner and writers go into in terms, and the directors go into in terms of portraying to us, okay, the world is still collapsing and there's no new manufacturing and there's no new production of stuff. We have to cobble together stuff in order to make them of use. But the way that they are able to show us that, hey, we can still build tools, it's sort of it's like, this is what it means to be human. Human is building tools and repurposing things for our own use, and taking stock of everything that's all around us and being able to then reuse it. I just felt like that was a fantastic visual way of showing us that. I loved it, just loved it.
Yeah. That was great.
So, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't, although it was like the least interesting part of the entire episode, honestly, even after Hefe's PTSD. I really didn't like Daryl and Carol. God, it kills me to say it because, okay, I guess for a couple of reasons. One, because I don't really understand whether they are best buddies, whether there is something more. There's so zero chemistry between the two of them that it's whimsical, and I appreciate that, and I do like it, but it's whimsical. I felt like there was so much more between Carol and Ezekiel, and it felt like there was a spark of something here. Between Daryl and Carol, it feels like they're teenagers palling around out in the woods. I don't know. There was just something didn't feel right about it. I'm sure that I'll probably get hate mail on that one, but I didn't. What did you think?
I think the fans want them to be together. They want to believe that Daryl would hook up with her.
There you go.
The thing is, Daryl said, "You're my best friend." So what does that mean? So yeah. Why not hook them up? But you know what though? Little Lord of the Rings, when she fired off that arrow, you know who she looked like?
Who did she look like?
Lord of the Rings.
Oh, you really? You think she looked? Yeah, I guess she did. You're right. yeah, she did.
Yeah. So
it's I think that maybe my skepticism about Daryl and Carol, whether they're a fan favorite or not, is that I will say that I was actually pretty surprised at how much more open Daryl was this first episode than I think I've seen him in the past 3 seasons combined. And so in that way, it was actually really satisfying because it's weird. I of course love having, the strong silent type that can, sort of withstand everything and just do what needs to get done and, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, there's so much, it's an interesting, Daryl's story is such an interesting backstory. And yet from a personality standpoint, it always feels like Daryl just falls flat. And I love the scenes where there's some kind of depth to that character because it allows us to see that, he has been through hell. Everything from the very beginning. He has just been through so much, and to not give him that depth of personality is sort of, I felt like it was a shame. And this episode really went a long way to making me feel like they were really trying hard on it. But where he was trying to connect with Carol felt like, dude, you're my friend. I really like you. I really want you to be with me. Hey, let's, hop on a bike and grab some tequila and head off and see the world and all this stuff. But at the same time, I never got the feeling, and it was sort of reinforced by the end, I never got the feeling that Daryl was actually going to leave the group, because I think his identity is now the group. Whereas Carol has now moved off in completely sort of the opposite direction where she's been before. It's not like we haven't seen this from Carol before. Oh, I'm out on the boat. I'm going to stay out on the boat, because basically and intrinsically at heart, Carol is an antisocial person. Fight me on it if you want, but
no, I agree with you.
And so to have Carol try to pair up with Daryl, to me feels, ew, it just feels so wrong. Like, okay, no, this
I
just,
totally want that to happen.
I think yeah, I think you might be right. I think this might all be fan driven. I don't know.
I would love it.
Um,
Why not? You know.
as a kind of a confession, right? I used to, every single time I used to watch the Talking Dead after The Walking Dead, and I stopped watching it after, I don't know, season 7 maybe, or season 6, I think. I stopped watching it completely because I started getting so caught up in ideas that I don't think are necessarily the right ideas, and stuff that was presented felt to me like, okay, well, now you're just projecting stuff into the series, and I just didn't like it. But I had the opportunity to watch this time, and I have to say that, sometimes it's amazing how much insight people actually have into the show, and how long, when you think about how long this show has gone on, how much of that perspective is like, it just careens from one thing to the next. And the fact that there are still so many fans of the show that actively are clamoring for anything to happen, including Daryl and Carol, is such a testament to the staying power of the show.
Yeah, and Chris Hardwick does a brilliant job. He's amazing at his job, and I'm a huge fan of what he does on this show.
To be fair, it wasn't about Chris Hardwick, and it wasn't about his guests, and it was about this, like, I wanted to formulate my own ideas, and I oftentimes would find myself feeling like I was caught off guard by stuff that they would present, and then I would go, oh yeah, but maybe that's not the way it is. And I had to stop watching it because I felt too influenced by what was happening. So had nothing to do with whether they're good or not. But this particular episode of The Talking Dead was actually really excellent, and I really did appreciate all of the deconstruction that they did.
I thought he was really funny too, Chris.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was. Very funny. I mean, he always is, but he's. You know what? Just as a side note, I know he went through some stuff, and I'm not going to get into that. But I was so glad that they did their process, and he was allowed to come back, because the dude is so talented, and he is really good. And I just, that episode. I don't know if you saw the episode where he first came back. And
yeah, I did.
Years.
Yep.
I was damn near in tears, because he seems so grateful for, because not everybody is getting a second chance, So, and let's just be honest, most of them people don't deserve it. I'm not gonna say, like, I don't know what happened in his situation. I'm not gonna even go into it because I don't feel like this is the place to do it. But he's just very good at what he does.
He definitely is, and you can feel, the thing is, you can feel Chris Hardwick's passion for The Walking Dead.
Yeah. So like, if I ever ran into him somewhere or whatever or whatnot, I would definitely, and I don't do that a lot when I see celebrities or whatever, but I would go up to him and just and say, like, dude, you're really good at what you do. And his renaissance after doing Singled Out and whatnot, and then he got on G4 and then became the nerd guy.
Yep.
I don't know. Did you ever watch G4?
Yeah.
There was this guy named Kevin Pereira who was the main host of Attack of the Show, and he was literally the nerd guy. And then Chris Hardwick basically took his whole lane. Poor guy. He was literally the guy that they would call for all the nerd stuff, and he was, building, and then when Chris Hardwick and then Olivia Munn basically killed his career off because, sad. Yeah. So I don't even know where Kevin Pereira is. He's really good too. He's very talented, but yeah. So I know he just knew that he was going to be the guy, and Chris Hardwick, he seized it and he became the nerd. So,
Yep.
But anyway, I don't know though. Can you be a nerd? You got a supermodel wife, and
Oh no, yes, you can still be a nerd.
I don't know, man.
No, you
Driving sports cars, and I'm gonna need to see that nerd pass, Chris.
I think part though of nerd culture is you got to take your you have to be in a position where people actually like call you nerd, and they don't mean it in a positive, awesome self-esteem way. They mean it in the most, oh my god, not a nerd. Yeah, that way. So
I don't know. That's a great conversation. Not for this show, obviously, but that's a great conversation, and we've had somewhat of that conversation on indie radio before. But just like do you ever like you're a nerd, right? But then do you ever like get out of it? Like, I mean, do you get out of it once you've achieved or whatever? I don't know.
You know who else is a nerd like that? Joe. Oh gosh, I can't remember his last name. Oh darn. The guy who plays Alcide. Joe
Mangiello or whatever.
Mangiello.
Yeah.
Yes, him.
But is he a nerd really though? Are you a nerd with a six-pack?
Yeah, that's the question, right?
Are you a nerd if all these chicks want to bang you? Like, come on.
I don't know.
I mean, he got nerd tendencies and all of that, and he's really smart to attach himself to all of that. But I mean, come on now.
All right, so
putting him in a locker.
I think we could agree, however, or I hope we could agree, however, that the one person who is the most nerdy of all nerds in the universe we're talking about is Eugene.
Mm-hmm.
Because even in this episode, all the way until the very end of this episode, Eugene was nerding it out. Not only did he make like crazy time charts and exact formulations on baby formula. Oh my god, it was so funny. There's just something both creepy and endearing about Eugene. And my favorite line from Eugene in the entire episode was him saying something like, well, we've all been exposed to radiation. Why do you think we all get turned into zombies after we die anyway?
Right. Yeah.
And I thought, that's actually really interesting. But we don't know. We still don't know exactly.
We know what that whole thing was about.
Which thing?
The whole radiation thing, because the writers were sitting there saying, I know they're going to be saying,
yes,
wouldn't they be nuked, and all of that.
Yes.
So put that in there to kind of cover their butt.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah. So, which, hey, I mean, I ain't mad at them. It was smart, but
I mean, in terms of what really caused the zombie apocalypse, or what could have been a precursor to the zombie apocalypse, I mean, damn, that's a pretty good, idea too. We were all exposed to some crazy amount of radiation. It's as good a theory as any.
Right. All right.
I do just one more thing. I also just in turn have to say that Luke's response was also just as good, which was, no one's getting superpowers today.
Right. I love it.
Because, clearly the Walking Dead and the Marvel universe can't exist at the same time. So just wanted to throw that in there.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. How can people get you in?
Great episode. Really great episode. And if this is what we've got coming for next season, I'm super excited. Okay, so people can find me on social media. Following Bliss 1 is my Twitter. And please drop me a line and let me know what you're thinking. And you can visit me on the web at moviesmakethemeal.com, which is all decked out for Halloween right now, and criticallaughs.com. How can people get you on social media?
They can get me at Kinte F on Twitter, Kinte Ferguson on Instagram, and they can get me or get us at indyradio.org. That's INDY radio.org. All right. We'll see you next time with an all new episode.